brother. What you gonna do, brother? Oh, yeah. Are you ready? Hey, yo. And that's the bottom line. Shut that control into a nosedive. Woo!
Well, all I can say is someone's been eating their vitamins and saying their prayers.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
You're next. What? Oh, that's the Goldberg taking it out. Goldberg just feared the rock.
That's cheap, plain and simple.
Rest in peace.
Welcome to the JM Report. I'm your host, GoodOlJM, coming to you from JM Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. This is episode 95 on this May 30th, 2020. Yeah, I have to agree right off the bat here. 2020 has been a real asshole, considering all the nonsense and craziness going on and people protesting, which they have every right to. But what's been going on this week, the protesting helped, and I believe they had the voices heard as far as what's going down over in Minnesota, in Indianapolis to be exact, for justice for George Floyd, who unfortunately was had his life taken away this past Monday during Memorial Day while in police custody. And I'm not going to get too much into it, but point being that the protesting worked. Everyone who participated exercised their constitutional right. Person responsible got arrested and charged. Now that person will have their day in court, and there's more to it, obviously. But ever since, I believe the arrest took place this past Friday, so anything that from that point on that's quote unquote protesting, no. Everything should have stopped at that point. Now it's just rioting, the complete opposite of what they were protesting in the first place. And I seriously hope those who were protesting to begin with are not part of this, these riotings all over the place. Hell, there was some quote protesting taking place near my home, but thankfully nothing came from it as far as any kind of activities or any kind of violence or whatnot. So if you're gonna protest, say what you gotta say, make your point. But once destruction gets involved, and for whatever reason, law enforcement, or in this case, more than likely, the military is going to take charge and take action. Yeah, it's a riot at that point. So I'm not saying to do one or the other, but what I am saying is, whatever it is you're going to do it safely, and do not cause any destruction. Do not cause any harm to anyone else. Do not get yourselves hurt. If you're going to protest, then, like I said, have your voice be heard and do it the right way. And I never knew George Floyd, nor do I know anyone from his family nor his friends. So I'm not going to take it upon myself to speak about what's going to happen moving forward or speak on their behalf, but taking a shot in the dark here. But I'm pretty sure this is not what Mr. George Floyd would have preferred to see and happen in his name and his honor. So just please reconsider. We're all better than that. With that out of the way, let's move on with some pro wrestling news of this week. Matter of fact, a week ago, we had AEW Double or Nothing 2. There were some changes, and what changes in the lineup, that is. There were numerous wrestlers hurt during the previous episode of AEW Dynamite. One in particular, Dr. Britt Baker, who was completely taken out. Well, let's just go through the results here, and I'll explain who was hurt and who was their replacements. So Penelope Ford would eventually replace Baker in her match against Chris Statler, and Joey Janela subbed for Phoenix in the Casino Ladder match that was won by the debuting Brian Cage. Brian Cage, who surprised the world after just previously being in Impact Wrestling for a couple of years at that point. Early in the broadcast, AEW doctor Michael Sampson was interviewed and discussing about Baker's injury and revealed that she fractured her tibia and torn her LCL in her right knee, I should say, which was later confirmed on this past week's episode of Wednesday Night Dynamite. And in addition, a slight tear in the tendons. Even though all of this sounds serious, surgery has yet to be discussed nor needed. Time will tell. But she mentioned, her being Britt Baker, said that she will be back as soon as September 5th for AEW's All Out. It's a very short window to heal from all these injuries. But at no point did anyone make it sound as serious as it seems. But we'll see. And hopefully she can return. During the pre-show for Double or Nothing, it was All In. Best Friends defeated Private Party in a tag team match to determine the number one contenders for the tag team titles. And as I mentioned, Brian Cage debuted with Taz along his side and would win the Casino Ladder match for a future AEW World title match currently held by Jon Moxley. I just spoiled the main event there. MJF would defeat Jungle Boy. Cody would defeat Lance Archer to become the new TNT champion. For those who are unaware, basically the TNT Championship is going to be their version of a television championship. This week on Dynamite, Cody basically describes the title as going to be defended every week on Dynamite, of course, on the TNT network. And every week it will be an open challenge. So this week it will be Jungle Boy, who won a Battle Royal this past week on Dynamite, and he will face Cody this coming Monday, I should say. Oh, Monday, I wish. This coming Wednesday night for the TNT Championship. And that will be the first ever title defense for the championship, and the first time Cody defending a title in AEW since it started. Dustin Rhodes would defeat Shawn Spears. Chris Statler would defeat Penelope Ford. Nyla Rose lost her AEW Women's Championship to Hikaru Shida. As I mentioned, Jon Moxley retained over Mr. Brody Lee by technical submission and retained the AEW World Championship. And this was actually the main event. The Stadium Stampede, if you haven't seen it, my words cannot do it justice, but it was just complete mayhem from start to finish. A lot of cool looking spots, a lot of high risk spots, a lot of comedic spots, as expected from Chris Jericho and the Inner Circle. But it was Adam Page, Broken Matt Hardy, and the elite of Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, who was able to wrestle this night, along with Nick Jackson, defeated the Inner Circle of Chris Jericho, Jake Hager, Sammy Guevara, Santana, and Ortiz. Again, just complete chaotic, entertaining match. I know some people didn't find it as entertaining as, say, the two Money in Bank ladder matches we had a couple of weeks ago from WWE. And I get that. But you know what? Because those matches were different. The two cinematic matches we had at WrestleMania were different. And I found this completely different, taking full advantage of the unoccupied stadium right next door to Bailey's place. Why I say Bailey? Daly's place. And it worked out to their advantage. And you know what? Again, there were a lot of entertaining spots that had a ring set up right on the 50-yard line. So what more can you ask for? But Tony Khan did confirm about the presence of Brian Cage, who has been signed all the way back on January of this year, and that the company had been paying him while he was rehabbing his injury that took place during his much later stints in Impact Wrestling towards the end. Cage had been out of action since January with a torn bicep, which is when he left Impact Wrestling, and was a recent guest on the Pat Buck show, and spoke about reports that he signed with AEW in January while he was still working for Impact Wrestling. And during Hard to Kill pay-per-view, SoCal Uncensored reported that Cage had signed with AEW, and his wife, Melissa Santos, quickly denied the reports. Cage says he signed an extension with Impact just to get to the pay-per-view, and that they were attempting to work out a deal. He was injured before the event and mentions that he had several great offers from Impact and others, but he thought he was out of luck because he was hurt and nobody would want to give him a new contract. As he weighed his options of surgery or therapy, they worked out a plan for a match versus Rob Van Dam, where he would be taken out, and RVD could still have a proper match with Daga. Cage said besides the existing bicep tear, he busted open his lip, and then he went through the current, and the people were reacting live to the news that he had signed with AEW. And says it was awkward because Impact Wrestling was still scheduled to give him a new offer that weekend. And a saving grace would be in the fact that he is still getting offers despite being hurt. So in other words, Impact didn't want to let him go. They probably thought that they saw dollar signs in Brian Cage. Well, if used properly, definitely. Just look at the huge beast. And despite being a gentle giant, as many use that term, yeah, he is. Obviously, the details and the numbers were never released yet, but what I'm gathering here is AEW had a much better deal. For all we know, Cage might still be recovering from said injury from his bicep tear. Never received surgery. Sometimes when you don't get surgery for a muscle tear or anything really ripped or broken in your body, and you skip the surgery and go back to work, it's risky. No, I'm not a doctor, but I've had experience in that. So, again, Brian Cage is now a new member of AEW. He's won the Casino ladder match, which is, in so many cases, a Money in the Bank ladder match for AEW, and will, quote, cash in at some point to face the AEW champion later on. But they do have a match scheduled, Brian Cage and John Moxley, that is, for Fighter Fest, which is still unknown of exactly when and where it will take place. There were some questions and comments regarding to the new TNT Championship. As nice as it looked, at the same time, it was, well, I don't think it's finished. At least that's what a lot of people had to say when it came to the center plate. That it just looked too empty, too blank, other than saying TNT champion on it. Well, speaking to WrestleZone.com, Cody explained that the TNT Championship lacked design and said, I know Tony has already told you all that this happens, so it's not breaking news, but this isn't even the final belt. The actual silver-plated title, which has the shine finish and extra details due to the pandemic, we don't have it here. We will have it maybe as soon as this week's Dynamite, which he did not, unfortunately. But Ron Edwardson of Red Letter, he produced the belt, he designed it and put it together, told via his Facebook account to confirm more details behind the delay of the final belt design, saying, accurate image of the TNT belt made by myself. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, the platers I used were working on skeleton crews and cannot only work on an emergency equipment. Once regular business resumes, the belt will get some much more needed highlights in nickel and gold, as well as a relief TNT logo. They announced that it would be done by Double or Nothing. I was asked if I could get it done by then, and I said yes. But then the pandemic happened, and it made the nickel plated impossible, so I was told to do the best I could. While it's not the end result, it will be still a reminder to Cody's accomplishments and testimony that even during the pandemic, we can not stop doing the best we can do in what we have. So, in other words, unlike the Brahma Bull Championship belt that The Rock was supposed to debut, now it's available as replica belts. Supposedly that belt got lost in the mail. So if you remember that episode where The Rock threw Steve Austin's Smoking Skull belt into the river and never did, that night he was supposed to debut his own version of the WWE Championship in a Brahma Bull design. Unfortunately, the package got lost in the mail, never made it to TV, and by the time it did, they were past that idea and moved on, basically holding the Smoking Skull belt as hostage, while Steve Austin moved on to use, at the time, the regular-looking WWE title. But these things happen. I mean, there are a lot of belt creators out there. It takes time and effort, and if you're one that's looking for a custom-made belt for your business or your company or for yourself to have as a collector's item, and you have specific details in your design drawn out or put together on your computer, and to have it handmade, again, it is time-consuming, to say the least. The color, the material you want it to be used on, so on and so forth. And I've seen firsthand, behind the scenes, so to speak, what it takes to put one championship belt together. Imagine several thousands or tens of thousands of replicas to put together and then put them out there for sale. It takes a long time. So, pandemic's been going on for about 3 months, going on 4 now. And it's not mentioned exactly when, probably right before the TNT tournament even was announced. So yeah, the timeline adds up. So give it about 3 or 4 months ago, that probably was passed along to Ron Edwardson and said, hey, we need a new title belt. Here's the ideas. Here's the colors and the designs for them. Can you have it done by Double or Nothing? And I'm sure they tried. But hopefully we'll get to see it real soon. And I believe they put out already images on social media how it's supposed to look like, at least the final design of it. If you haven't yet, take a look. But it was Mike Tyson who presented Cody the championship last Saturday. It was weird, but they still accomplished what they wanted to do as far as the angle and the storyline goes. Excuse me. And Cody is the new TNT champion. Just a bit to cover what went on this past week on Dynamite. The former Revival had finally debuted, as expected, on AEW Dynamite, now known as FTR, going under the names of Cash Wheeler and Dax Hardwood. They saved the Young Bucks from the Butcher and the Blade after a 6-man tag with Matt Hardy. And then they walked away. JR put over the fact that these are two teams that were going at it in a social media war for some time, and then now may have the opportunity to face each other in AEW. Well, when they walked away, the Young Bucks were expecting to offer their handshake in appreciation from being saved from the Butcher and the Blade, but they just walked away. FTR did, and never seen or heard from again for the rest of the show. So again, the former Revival, I am so anxious to see what they can bring to the tag team division there in AEW. There are so many great potential matches there. I'm not saying give them the titles right away. Come on, that's just not how it works. But who knows? A bit of a head scratcher originally. First thought, everybody like, oh, the Revival's going to head to AEW and they're going to wrestle the New Bucks. They're going to wrestle the Young Bucks. Yeah, that goes without saying, but besides what we know, kayfabe, so to speak, what we know behind the scenes as far as the social media battle and the war of words they've had on Twitter especially, not everybody knows about that. So if you just throw it out there, like, oh, these guys have been arguing on Twitter, like, okay. And they were working for different companies at the time, so what does that mean? What does that prove? So now is the time to build on that. And I'm sure a lot of those tweets that were said or used actually will be used for the upcoming angle. But I seriously doubt they're going to be feuding as a heel versus babyface tag team. At least that's not the impression I got, especially how FDR walked away. We might get some more interaction with them this coming week, so they got my attention on that part. Bit of a follow-up on the passing. We talked about this last week of Hana Kimura, who I believe was laid to rest today, earlier on in Japan. There's a CNN report that Japan's Minister of International Affairs and Communications pleaded this past Tuesday to work faster regarding government discussions around cyberbullying legislations, saying it is important to improve literacy on the internet so that users won't use comments to hurt others with slander. Also in the same article, other stars of the Terrace House, the reality show in Netflix Japan, discussed their issues with cyberbullying in the wake of the tragic death of Hana Kimura. The Netflix Japan had decided to discontinue the show altogether in the wake of her passing. And Japan now says that they want to do something about cyberbullying and make sure that this does not happen to anyone else again. Fuji TV has canceled airing the remaining season. And also, as I mentioned, neither will Netflix will carry on the show other than the streaming previous episodes. The show, a reality-based program similar to Big Brother, had Hana Kimura appear on it, was cited as the major cause of the cyberbullying of the 22-year-old received before her death, particularly a single incident. And this is what I wasn't too sure about, and I hesitated last week to discuss it because I didn't have all the details. And as much as I tried to translate a lot of the reports and some of the video, again, I couldn't put all the pieces together. But by the time I had my previous January report posted, but there was a single incident in one in the I guess the last episode of the Terrace House. There was a male guest showed and on the show and seemed to have caused much of the complaints on the internet after it aired. And it became an international hit thanks to the inclusion of Netflix's streaming library. But the incident in question is, well, there was this other cast member who apparently, this is just an abbreviation, who apparently washed clothing, not realizing that there was still a load in the washing machine that belonged to Hana Kimura. And among her clothing was a ring attire that she wore. And apparently this particular ring attire meant a lot to her. I believe it was the same one that she had a first wrestling match in. So just throwing an extra load on top of the load that was already washed, it shrunk her ring attire. And understandably, Kimura became very upset and yelled at this other cast member. And these clips, these particular scenes I'm talking about, they're on YouTube, so if you want to look them up. Hannah got upset. I confronted the guy, walked over to him at one point towards the end of the argument. She knocked out a baseball cap that he was wearing, something along the lines that it was that he looked stupid in it, and just stormed out, went upstairs. Now, supposedly that's what triggered some of these assholes that began the cyberbullying, that her actions were inexcusable, there was no reason for it, and so on and so forth. I'm not even going to pretend to imagine what other language was used specifically to meet her end. And So yeah. So you mean to tell me that because if it was me, yeah, well, dude, you shrunk my clothes. Did you not bother to check the machine to see if it was still full before you threw your load in there and just literally make a mess of things? You know, it's one thing to apologize. It's another thing to replace. In Hana Kimura's case, that meant so much a lot to her. That meant so much to her, and just couldn't channel what Hannah's frustration was, what her bearings were. And keep in mind, not that he was confrontational about it. I mean, he looked like he felt like shit after the fact. But regardless, apparently, some of these morons on the internet thought that, like, well, that was going too far. Up until now, I don't know anybody personally, that is, anyone that's been a victim of this cyberbullying nonsense. All I know is I can do what I can, but if you even think or have the slightest feeling or that sixth sense that something is wrong with someone you know, someone close to you, a friend, a relative, don't hesitate. They can deny it all they want and they can refuse your help all they want, but if you still got that feeling in your gut that something is wrong and may or may not lead to what eventually happened to Hana Kimura, step in. Step in. That few moments, those few minutes you take to try to get to talk to your friend or your relative to find out what's going on in their lives before they hurt themselves or someone else, and leading to something much worse than that, you lose absolutely nothing in trying to step in and intervene and maybe trying to figure things out and help them in the process to not do what they were probably thinking of doing long before you even said anything. So we say it all the time. You know, cyberbullying needs to stop. The racial tension bullshit around the world needs to stop. I think the world itself is, especially nowadays, it's dealing with enough nonsense as it is. Whether it's frustration, and this is how certain people think that how they should let out the frustration on others by hurting others. Well, there's something seriously wrong there, and I'm against that. So maybe they just need to stay at home a lot longer and figure shit out for themselves. But if their intent is to leave their homes and cause problems, cause trouble, cause harm to anyone else in every shape, in every sense of the word, then you need to stay your ass home for a lot longer than 3 or 4 months or whatever, how long this has been going on. But enough is enough. Let's switch gears here and head over to WWE news. Apollo Crews has finally won a singles championship on the main roster ever since moving up from NXT, defeating Andrade for the United States Championship, which almost was a shock. And I say almost because it was just a matter of time. And the way they were pushing Apollo up until his quote injury that kept him out of Money in the Bank, like, oh, they gotta do something for this guy. You just don't build him up and have that amount of momentum to a match he probably would have won before they decided to go with Otis. And it's like, you know what? He's a good sport. Maybe he's not ready for the WWE title or the Universal title yet, but you know, he's been a good sport. Let's throw him a bone here and got a win over Andrade. So now he's the new United States champion. And I say kudos. Great. Go for it, dude. Hopefully we'll get some great matches out of him. More than likely it's going to be a rematch, although it wasn't announced yet, but we'll see what happens this week on Raw. After a brief period of his contract of WWE lapsing, somehow Drew Gulak is back. Made a cameo appearance just last night on SmackDown as if he never left. And it's official on the WWE website as they added him back into the active roster members page. And he is no longer listed as an alumni, which I thought was hilarious. So for like 2 weeks, you were alumnus, and now you're back on the main roster. In addition, Fightful Select to be exact, it was reporting that Gulak worked this week's SmackDown taping, and according to Dave Meltzer's sources, when Gulak was briefly a legit free agent for a couple of weeks, there were people that tried to book him for future dates. People as in the independent scene. And when they tried to contact him, the way Gulak reacted, they knew he was going to be heading back somewhere because he was not interested in anything tossed toward him or offered to him during the past couple of weeks that he was out of action. The assumption was that WWE or AEW was a sure thing, but Gulak was headed back to the Blue Brand regardless, and that's the end of that story. So, like I said, as if he never left. Contract expires. Thanks for coming. 2 weeks later, hey, welcome back. It's almost as if he was on a non-paid vacation, but hey, you're good. WWE taped next week's episodes of Raw, and it's already in the can. However, a huge chunk of it, if not already, could be heavily edited. And it's a deja vu scenario all over again. So, there was a scary incident during a women's match that involved Nia Jax and Kairi Sane. Sane apparently suffered a cut over her head while outside of the ring. And once again, Fightful Select reports the match was temporarily stopped so that Kairi Sane could receive medical attention ringside. The match was resumed and quickly wrapped up. If the match is, it would, as I said, will more likely be edited. The story goes that Nia Jax threw Kairi Sane against the ring steps, banging her head. Now there are other reports saying that it was yet another buckle bomb that was previously botched about 3 weeks ago from Nia Jax, ironically towards Kairi Sane, just narrowly missing the bottom rope, but still made contact enough to get that whiplash effect and knocked Kairi Sane silly. Not concussed, but knocked her silly enough to be out of action, and as she has been for the past couple of weeks. But coming from PW Insider, they're revealing that the buckle bomb is now banned in WWE. That includes Seth Rollins and now Nia Jax from ever using this move ever again, similar to the power driver. Unless you're a long-term veteran like Jerry Lawler or The Undertaker that know how to deliver this move, you are not allowed to use it. Also known as the powerbomb aimed towards the turnbuckles. Seth, of course, Rollins, that is. And he would use this after the fact, but this buckle bomb move is mainly responsible for the end of the career of Sting, at least in WWE. And the same maneuver by the same person, Seth Rollins, used on the outside of the ring to powerbomb, in this case, towards the railings on the outside of the ring, to powerbomb Finn Balor. And looking back several times, it looked like, to me, that Seth Rollins didn't realize the distance where he stopped heading towards the barricades. And at midair, and you can watch this in slow motion, in midair, Balor had to look back and realize he's too far away. So to embrace the impact, he stuck out his elbow behind him, and unfortunately, it caused a dislocation of the shoulder. But somehow continued the match and win to become the first ever Universal Champion at the time at SummerSlam. So, what, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I mean, Nia Jax has been getting a lot of shit lately for botching moves left and right, that she's still green, so on and so forth. Seth Rollins is no angel, at least not in the ring. And it's not, I believe it's not intentional. But 2 buckle bombs botched. Let's not forget the high knee into John Cena's face that shattered his nose and required surgery that same week just to get him back on TV the following week. Good Lord, Vince, give everybody a break. So now Kairi Sane is once again injured. I'm real curious to see how much of the match is edited. And, hey, you know what? They might not even air it at all because all this attention that it's getting now online, long before it even airs. And they might substitute it with a backstage scene, Nia Jax cutting a promo, talking about taking out Kairi Sane a couple of weeks ago, matter of fact, backstage when she rammed her into one of those anvil cases. It will still go along with the storyline that's going on between Nia and Asuka heading towards Backlash. So it can still be consistent, and Kairi Sane just won't be available. More than likely, not even make it to Backlash. But they have a creative team, quote unquote. They're geniuses, quote unquote. Then, well, maybe I should discuss what happened at SmackDown yesterday. Despite the parody of what's it called? That film, High Times at Ridgemont High. Mandy Rose and Otis. The hell did I see? Clearly, the story's been handed over to different people, as the original writer was terminated on Black Wednesday. Until, I don't know if she'll ever have a shoot interview scheduled anytime soon, but I'm curious to hear if this was part of the original storyline moving forward after Mania, especially after Mania, and then moving into Money in the Bank. For the sake of this argument, I'm going to say I don't think so, but it's a complete different turn for, and you notice, you think about it, when they first finally kissed, Otis and Mandy did on WrestleMania, it was like a innocent little smooch. They repeated the same thing the next couple of weeks. It was only up until Otis appeared on SmackDown after winning the Money in the Bank, and I guess somebody turned up the dial when it came to, the adult stuff. And yeah, no pun intended, but it climaxed this past Friday on SmackDown at somebody's pool. So they might need to drain that pool. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was innocent. It was it's just a complete 180 from how and where it was going between Mania and Money in the Bank. That's all I'm saying. Hopefully it goes somewhere, and not to think too far ahead, whenever they decide to have Otis cash in the briefcase, that Mandy does not become too much of a distraction whenever that happens and he's not able to cash in, at least on the first attempt. I'm thinking that there's going to be 1 or 2 attempts by Otis, and maybe Mandy not distracting him where she's pulling his leg out or distracting the referee. No, more in support and advise Otis, not now. Now is not the time. Don't cash in. After beating down Braun Strowman or walking in after a Strowman beatdown from someone else. And Otis is trying to take advantage, and it's Mandy trying to talk Otis into saying, like, no, be a man and cash in face to face. But that's just me. No one's asking, so let's move on. Earlier this month, and I mentioned this last week as well, a report came out suggesting that Vince McMahon was maybe interested in buying back the XFL after the league declared bankruptcy. Now, this week, in a new report from ESPN, of course, they completely squashed that story and any possibilities of it happening. Mr. McMahon made a recent filing in bankruptcy court this past Tuesday, stating that he will not be one of the bidders, if any, to purchase the XFL. In the same filing, he called claims to the contrary, and it's unknown at the moment whether or not McMahon will attempt to be a part of a group of buyers instead of being a solo individual, as he was the founder of the XFL originally back in 2000 into the 2001 season. But as of right now, it seems he is not likely interested in buying back the league at all. So, but there were a lot of statements, reports, comments made, what have you, last week, that it looked like Vince was about to buy back the league, the same league that he just out of nowhere, well, we know why, but the actions just out of nowhere shut down the entire league, firing everybody, lawsuits up the ass, filing for bankruptcy. You know what? Let me buy this thing back and just dust it underneath the carpet like I did with WCW. And life goes on. Everybody's happy. And I said, and I'll say it again now, despite more evidence of the fact out of this ESPN report, that to me it seemed like the actions moving forward at that time Vince was taking could have been illegal. More so to save face, because again, got all these lawsuits, no word on what the status is now, if it's ongoing, was it settled, or what have you. But there's a lot of money involved. We're talking millions here. And to quietly, respectfully, under the radar, buy back the same company that you yourself shut down. And it's all right, well, worries are over. But how's that help everybody else that was terminated in less than 5 minutes on that Tuesday conference call? Well, if he says so, it's got to be true. Vince is not interested, so we move on. For now, the case is pending. We'll leave it at that. Just got a few more stories to share here. Samoa Joe, who is yet to be medically cleared by the WWE doctors, looks like he's going to be the permanent replacement for Jerry the King Lawler on the Raw commentary table. Well, alongside Todd Phillips and Brian Saxton, I think they got pretty good chemistry despite some of the nonsense they have them saying, especially out of Saxton and Phillips' mouth. But that's just me. I think finally giving the King a break, long overdue, despite having in and out of, on occasion, in and out of the broadcast team, well, not only for Raw, but also for SmackDown. For a while, it looked like they were trying to bring back that little edgy Jerry Lawler, of course, the not so innocent comment about Tozawa a few weeks ago, which I'm not going to repeat here. And they had him back the following week, and then the next week he was gone. And here's Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe fits like a glove behind the commentating table, and he knows what he's talking about. Doesn't have to sugarcoat anything, and hopefully that's some of the freedom that they allow him to have when he's able to speak and not have too many lines read to him over the headsets. But that particular detail, time will tell. But what's going to happen with Jerry Lawler, no one knows, other than Dave Meltzer confirmed this. Once again, not clear to wrestle in the ring, but he's more than likely going to be the replacement, the permanent replacement for Jerry the King Lawler. And I say good on that front. Nigel Mcguinness, who was originally thought being off the NXT commentating team, that he went home to be with family during the pandemic, having lots of concerns for his family, and decided to stay home. And I'm sure something would have worked out similar to Mauro Ranallo to work from home and still broadcast and commentate for the NXT matches. But according to Dave Meltzer, he confirmed this week that Nigel Mcguinness has been furloughed. Of course, furlough doesn't mean terminated, doesn't mean fired. Just for now, you're just not working for us. So go home or stay home or thumb wrestle with somebody. You just don't come to work for now. Which is a damn shame because for the longest time, again, we all thought that he was just staying home to be with family, to be safe at home with family. No details as far as, well, and not everyone got a similar deal, at least not the ones that were furloughed, if whether or not they'll still be paid while they're out of the company. I would assume everyone was financially secured and they were given enough time to set that up moving forward. And matter of fact, it's expected sometime this coming week, the first week of June, that most, if not a lot of these individuals that were furloughed will return to WWE, as first reported shortly after Black Wednesday. So we'll keep an eye out to see who exactly returns to work behind the scenes as trainers, managers, agents, producers, all that good jazz. And of course, in Nigel Mcguinness's case, as announcers. So hopefully he can come back. Maybe he'll be able to do some commentating for NXT UK. All this is up in the air right now, but hopefully we're not seeing the last of Nigel Mcguinness in WWE. I'll end with this story, and it's a very positive and happy one. It's been shared all over social media, especially on Instagram. And for those who have been wondering and asking about the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, where has he been since Money in the Bank? Well, he's been with JoJo. And they welcomed a second child into the world. So yes, the Fiend is now a father again. I wonder if he reads some lullabies and he wears that mask or sings a tune, "Rockin' My Baby," and he's wearing the Fiend mask. Oh, no, don't do that. Again, going off track here, but congratulations to JoJo and Bray Wyatt once again, mother and father to a second child. Baby looks great. They posted a picture of the baby a couple of times here and there. So Wyndham Rotunda, aka Bray Wyatt, congratulations. JoJo, who at least for now, more than likely is probably not going to return to ring announcing anytime soon. Hence why she went home the first time because she was expecting her first child, and now with a second one, more than likely not going to return to her duties as a ring announcer. And that's fine for good reason. And we have to welcome into the world Harry Von Rotunda, if I'm pronouncing her name right, a little cutie here. And we'll see if she'll follow at least Daddy's footsteps into the wrestling business. But that won't be for a long time, folks. But Mazel Tov, congratulations all around for the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and JoJo. And yeah, I mean that Wyatt family, well, no pun intended, but the Rotunda family, I should say, has been growing a lot the past few years. And I don't even know if Bo Dallas is dating anyone. I don't think Micah Rotunda is dating anyone. I'm not sure, but point being, everyone's still young, younger than me, that's for sure. And they have the whole future ahead of them as far as ever thinking about settling down and having their own clan of sons and daughters running around. But with that said, if you like what you heard, subscribe and click on that subscribe button. Click on the like. Click on the bell to be notified for the next JM report. Also, you can follow me throughout social media as listed in the description below. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. I will be back next time for more stories of this week in pro wrestling. Looking forward to I believe it premieres Sunday afternoon, the unseen footage of Sting on the network. Of course, we got Backlash coming up in a couple of weeks. And, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson more than likely is going to be involved with AEW a little bit more. Will he get in the ring versus Chris Jericho? Time will tell. He's been training and busting his ass off the past few weeks for a possible match against Tyson Fury, a legit boxing match. But will we see Tyson versus Jericho, and will we see Tyson versus Tyson? Who knows? And for those crybabies, it's pro wrestling. Everything gets copied eventually. The only twist this time with WWE is now SmackDown, NXT, and Raw is being contested inside of a hockey rink. Thank you for listening. Everyone behave, be good, be safe, be healthy. Till next time.
I found the strength to open my eyes, leave it all behind. So open your mind and realize that your beautiful world could take my life. And I'm sinking under, drowning faster. Please just let me breathe.